to score 5 goals for England at Wembley, and it was against Cyprus. And the question we got asked at half time was, Mal, why didn't you really play for England again after that?
Oh, if only I was. Well, I've been an England international from 22, which was quite young then. You know, it's amazing what they're doing these days. And that was under Alf Ramsey. And Alf was the straightest, squarest man you could ever wish to meet. And he would always be absolutely honest with you. If you'd had a bad game, he would have told you, and he would have told you what exactly what you'd done wrong and what you should do to improve, and so on and so forth. I thought the world of him. And he was sacked. Incredibly, we had just drawn away at Portugal 0-0. Very good Portuguese side. But he was sacked. And the next permanent manager that the FA employed was Don Revie. Now, he picked squads for his first 3 games, and I was excluded from that each time. And I just thought, well, maybe he doesn't fancy me as a player, and that he's got other. But those 3 games didn't go well at all, and they were really struggling for goals. And there was a huge clamouring going on in the sports pages of the newspapers, and all of them were saying that he should put me into the team. I was the leading goal scorer in the country at the time, and so for his 4th game, he did. And so I've arrived at the hotel in Hertfordshire, West Park Lodge, and I've asked at reception where I might find Don Revie. They said he's in the lounge down there. So I've gone there, and I've said, Malcolm McDonald reporting. I said, no injuries from the game yesterday. And he looked up and he said, I don't want you here. As far as I'm concerned, you've been foisted upon me by the press, and if you don't score on Wednesday night, I'll never pick you again. Personally, I thought that was a bit much. Particularly as on Wednesday night, we were due to play the world champions in their first game as world champions, having won the 74 World Cup. Yeah, we were playing West Germany. So I thought, oh, well, always look on the bright side of life. And I thought, well, at least I know I'm playing. Everybody else was having to wait until much nearer the game to find out whether they were playing or not. But he pretty much told me on the Sunday that I was playing. And so I was just able to concentrate on me and goal scoring and what have you. And so we've gone out against West Germany, and it was the full World Cup side. In the first half, Colin Bell scored a lovely goal from about 15 yards. And we were playing some real stuff. By heavens, it was one of the finest performances I've played in of all my career. And this team just flowed, and we were, well, to be honest, we were pissing all over them. And so about 15 minutes to go, and on the inside, in the inside right position, just outside the box, Mick Shannon was fouled, and as he was getting up, Alan Ball made an overlap around him on the outside, and Mick, halfway up, he nudged the ball into Bawley's path, and Bawley clipped a great cross beating Setmeyer, the keeper, beating Beckenbauer, right over to the far post. I nodded it in from about 3 yards. And well pleased. We were 2-0 up, and that's how the game finished. And so we were in the dressing room congratulating ourselves and saying how well we had done and what have you. And Don Revie has come in, and he's gone across and he's gone, well played, Peter, to Peter Shilton. Well played, Colin, to Colin Todd. Well played, David, to David Nish. Well played to the 4, to the 5, to the 6, 7, 8. Mick Shannon, shook him by the hand, walked past me, shook hands with the 10 and the 11, and walked out the door. Wow, that's some insult. And so I thought, well, I don't know. And he never said a word to me at all following that game. And I didn't know whether or not I was ever going to get picked again. And the next game wasn't until the following year. And it was in the European Championships, and we were playing Cyprus at Wembley. And so I was selected and for the squad, and went to the hotel and asked the reception. I said, no, he's down in the lounge there. So I went down and I said, Malcolm McDonald reporting. I said, no injuries from the game yesterday. He said, the same applies as last time. If you don't score, I'll never pick you again. I thought, right, thank you very much. You just told me I'm playing. So I was able to get myself well prepared. And we were playing Cyprus. And Alan Ball, who never missed a trick of what was going on in a meeting room or a changing room or on the pitch, never missed a trick. He said to me, he said, Revie doesn't talk to you, does he? I said, no. I said, to be honest, I said, he's putting me under a lot of pressure. He said, what's happening? I said, well, when I arrived for the West Germany game, he told me if I didn't score, he'd never pick me again. I said, and he's just done the same to me here when I arrived. He said, outrageous. Absolutely outrageous. He said, you leave it with me, he said. And so we had a meeting in the afternoon before travelling to Wembley for the game. And at the end of the meeting, Bawley said, Mal, come over here. And Mick, to Mick Shannon. Huddy, to Alan Hudson. Over here. He's related the tale of what Revie has been doing to me. And they've gone, whoa, that's out of order. So Paulie said, right, he said, any idea what the scoring record of an individual for England is? And we all said, no, haven't got a clue. He said, Willie Hall scored 5 at Windsor Park against Northern Ireland back in 1938. He said, but that's the record, 5. He said, this man tonight is going to score 6. He said, and the 3 of us are going to make all those for him. Are you up for it? And they went, yeah, we're up for it. So we have gone to Wembley, got changed, got ready, and out we've gone. And I have got these 3 fabulous footballers who have promised to make me goals on the night. And so somebody's knocked the ball down the line, and there was a foul. And so Huddy's gone across and he's taken a free kick. And he put it right into this perfect position. And I'm coming in. Dave Watson, who was at Man City at the time, ex-Sunderland, he was going to go for it, and I pushed him out the way. And I've leapt and headed it down and into the corner. It's gone. So that's 1-0. Bawley has run across to me and he's gone, that's your first. 5 more to go. So Kevin Keegan did a little bit of magic and pulled the ball back. and I volleyed that one into the far corner. And Ballie's come running across and he's gone, that's your second, 4 more to go. Half time came and went, and we're into the second half. Mick Shannon pulled a ball back, and I dived onto that one, headed that over the line, and Ballie's come running up and he said, right, that's your first hat-trick. Now you go for your second hat-trick. And then there was a substitution made, and on came Dave Thomas, County Durham lad, who was playing for QPR at the time. Terrific crosser of a ball, brilliant crosser of a ball. And Ballie knew that, and he positioned himself so he could just knock it in behind the fullback. And Dave Thomas started pinging these crosses, and he knocked an absolute perler, and I've got up, headed that into the far top corner. And Ballie's come running across, and he's gone, that's your fourth. He said, only 2 more to go, plenty of time. And Dave Thomas knocked another one in, and I dived onto that one, headed it in, and Ballie's come running across, and he's gone, that's 5. You've equalled the record. You've created a record here at Wembley. He said, but now you go for your 6th. 1 more, just 1 more. Well, as it so happens, I did score another, but it was disallowed for somebody else being offside. I hit the post, didn't half hurt. And then the final whistle happened. And I was in the penalty area that was furthest from the tunnel. And above the tunnel was a large square device that digitally put the score up and what have you. And I was shaking Cypriot hands in the penalty area. And I looked up, and where it had England 5, Cyprus 0, that went blank. And so I carried on shaking hands, and the next thing, it lit up again. And I looked, and it read, congratulations, Supermac 5, Cyprus 0. And I just looked and I went, oh, wow. Wow, where are you, you bastard? And there he was, in his raincoat, hunched, walking round the track at the far side. And I said, read that and weep, you bastard! Read that and weep! I never played at Wembley again.
Amazing story, and thanks for asking that question at half time. I told you it was a good one. One other story I want to ask you, Mal, before we get the people's questions is Terry Hibbert. You mentioned him earlier, the man who obviously, created a lot of goals for you in your time at Newcastle. But a lot of fans don't really understand how Terry came to leave the club and why your relationship with that particular manager broke down. So let's talk about Terry Hibbert's departure before we depress ourselves even more by going into what's happening in Newcastle at the minute.
At the end of the 74-75 season, things started to suspiciously happen. And it started with Joe Harvey had offered Frank Clark a new contract, and they had negotiated it, and they had yet to finalise it. And then Joe called Frank into the dressing room, and he said, into his office, and he said, look, Frank, he said, I'm very sorry to say this. He said, I wanted to give you this new contract. He said, but the board have just instructed me to give you a free transfer. He said, what they have said to me, he said, and I'll be quite honest, is we think he's too old. So that was Frank leaving the club. I might just add that Cloughy stepped in and signed him for Nottingham Forest, who were in the second division at the time. And that following season, Forest won promotion to the first division. The next season, they won the first division championship. The following season, they won the European Cup. And the next season, just for good measure, they won the European Cup again. And Frank was in the whole lot. Yeah, good judges on the Newcastle board, weren't they? Yeah, oh, he's too old. He won more medals than you can believe. Anyway, so Frank was absolutely ripped apart because he was born and bred here in Tyneside. And then 4 days later, Joe Harvey was sacked. And he was devastated as well. If you cut him, he would have bled black and white. And so we were in this sort of managerless turmoil, really. And I had it agreed with the club because I hated long layoffs. And the summer, it was long, and I needed to play and to keep myself fit, keep my touch going. And so I got the club to agree that I could go on a temporary transfer to South Africa and play for a club in Johannesburg called Lusitano. And they played at the Rand Stadium, one of the finest pitches I've ever played on. And of course, it was the time of apartheid. And so it was the blacks who really loved their football, and the popular side on the far side to the stand was absolutely crammed with about 15 or 16,000 blacks, and they used to smoke a thing called dagga, which you can get high on. And so if you played out on the wing there, it was great.
Exactly.
Can I play on the wing again? And so, it was, so I was staying in a hotel in the centre of Johannesburg, and enjoyed playing, and they were all part-timers. There was a number of British lads in the side who were all out there. They had jobs to do. So we trained in the evening. And so one afternoon, I was just having a rest on my hotel bed, and the phone rang. And I said, hello. And a familiar voice said to me, hello, Mel. John Gibson here from the Evening Chronicle. I said, oh, hello, Gibbo. I said, what's up? He said, I've got a bit of news for you. He said, Newcastle have just appointed their new manager. I said, oh, really? Tell me. He said, they've appointed Gordon Lee. I said, Gordon who? The back page headline in the next day's Evening Chronicle read, Gordon who, ? Says Supermac from Johannesburg. Oh, cheers, John. Thanks for that. So anyway, a few weeks later, I returned from South Africa, and before the pre-season training started, I thought, I'll drive into St James and I'll just go and see the new manager and introduce myself and wish him well. So I've gone in, knocked on the manager's office door, come in, and I've gone in. There's Gordon Lee. And, I must tell you, having parked my car, I've got up the steps, and Gordon Lee's coach, of course, was Richard Dinnis. I'm not the best at remembering names all the while. And so as I was walking towards the main entrance double doors, the door opened and out came the fella. I recognised the face from the picture I'd seen in the Evening Chronicle. And And I went up and I said, "Hello, Dennis, my name's Malcolm McDonald." I thought his name was Dennis Richards, so it wasn't the best of starts that I had with the coach. But anyway, I've gone through to the manager's office, knocked on the door, and he said, "Come in." I've gone in, and I said, "I'm Malcolm McDonald." I said, "I thought I'd just come in and introduce myself and wish you well." He said, "I hear Terry Hibbett's a troublemaker. Tell me about him." I said, "All you need to know is he's got an absolute beauty of a left foot, plays like a dream, passes like a dream." I said, "He's just about one of the best in the game." And I thought, that's enough. And I walked out. And I thought, oh, we are going to have trouble. So I phoned Hibby up and I just said, "Be careful with this fella." And he started picking on Terry Hibbett all the time. And then he started leaving him out, even though Terry was playing really well. But he was in the side for a match at Derby County, the baseball ground. It was an evening match. And after about 4 or 5 minutes, the referee sent Mickey Burns off. Like he couldn't dent a bowl of porridge, Mickey Burns. Honestly, and the referee has seen something that's supposed to have happened. None of us saw it, and off Mickey went. So we were one short in midfield. So John Tudor dropped a little deeper, or I dropped a bit just to sort of strengthen it out. But Terry Hibbett moved in from the left somewhat, and he literally played the game of two men. He was absolutely fantastic. He was brilliant that night. Derby scored, we equalised. Derby scored again, we further equalised. And then with about 2 or 3 minutes to go, Derby scored again, and they beat us 3-2. And they were a good side at the time, really good side. And they beat us 3-2. And on the final whistle, Hibby just collapsed in the centre of the pitch. And he was just completely and utterly exhausted. And so I went over and I said, "Are you okay?" He said, "I'm just knackered." He said, "I haven't got the strength to get up." So I said, "Come on, I'll get you up." And I've pulled him up and I'm sort of holding him up on his feet. And I've walked him into the dressing room, and we've sat down. And Hibby is just absolutely wiped. And so I've gone and I've helped him get his mucky kit off and get his boots off. And all the other lads, they're all in the plunge bath, really deep bath at Derby County it was. And so I said, "Hey, come on, we've got to get you in the bath." I said, "Otherwise it's going to be really late by the time we get away." So we've gone through and we've got into the plunge bath with the other players. After a little while, they got out, and there's just me and Hibby. And we're talking about the game and what have you. And I said, "Come on, let's go and get dressed." And so I've sort of pushed him up the ladder on the side of the bath, and we've gone back into the dressing room from the bath area. And the physios have packed away all the kit, boots in one large hamper, and all the dirty kit in another hamper, and one's on top of the other. And on top of that was a brown paper parcel, like that. And Hibby is come on, and he's just said, and there was just the physios there, and Richard Dinnis, the so-called coach. And Hibby said, "What's the brown paper parcel doing there?" He said, "It looks like a pair of boots." He said, "Who's not going home?" And Gordon Lee had walked in the door just as Hibby was saying this, and you could see that the physios, they were going red. They just didn't want to get involved, and Richard Dinnis didn't want to be involved either. And Gordon Lee had strode across And he picked up this parcel, shoved it under Terry's arm, and he says, "You're not going home." He says, "Freddie Goodwin's outside, manager of Birmingham." He said, "I've agreed a fee." He said, "Get out there." He said, "and get something sorted." He said, "I want you out of the club." And he turned on his heel and walked out. And this little fella, Terry Hibbett, who had just had one of the most brilliant games that he had ever played, and he had had some good ones, and he was just absolutely wiped by all of this. He said, "I can't believe it. I can't believe what's just happened." He said, "It's worse than being sacked, what's just happened." I said, "Look, Hibby, listen to me carefully." I said, "You've got to stay focused and stay calm." I said, "Remember, you've got a family at home." I said, "You've got to think of them." I said, "Go and talk to Freddie Goodwin, see what he's got to say." I said, "But get yourself home. We'll get on the bus, get home, and go and talk with your missus and see what you want to do." "Right," he said, "Yeah, I will do, thanks." So Terry went off to talk to Freddie Goodwin, and I went into the players' bar, and no sooner than I got in there than Gordon Lee and Richard Dinnis came in. "Right, come on, everybody out, no more drinks, come on, everybody out, get on the bus, yeah, we've got a long journey, come on, we've got to go home." So they shuttled us all through the door, out onto the pavement and across onto the bus. And Gordon Lee got onto the bus and he said, "Right, everybody here." We said, "No, there's one missing." He said, "Driver, drive off." We said, "There's one missing. Terry Hibbett's talking to Freddie Goodwin." And he said, "Right, well, Freddie Goodwin can look after him." He said, "Driver, drive away. I'm leaving the little shit behind." And we went, "Whoa, what on earth is going on here?" And so Bob, the driver, Bob Green, lovely fella, he's sort of giving the coach a bit of kangaroo juice on the throttle and making a very slow job of pulling away. And as he's gone about 15 or 20 yards up the road, out of the main entrance has walked Terry Hibbett. And Hibby, he looks, waves, starts to run across, and Gordon Lee said, "Driver, if you don't drive away now and leave the little shit behind," he said, "I'll make sure that you lose your job." So Bob Green pulled away, and Hibby, bless him, he was left stranded in Derby late at night, very late at night. And he finished up going to Derby Station, getting a train to Chesterfield. From Chesterfield, he had to go to Sheffield, waited at Sheffield for a train to York, and then got the milk train coming up from London to take him to Newcastle. And he got home about 8 o'clock in the morning. And I thought then, with what I'd witnessed, I thought, I can't play for this shit ever again. But I've got to. But I'm going to be following Terry Hibbett out of this club. I am not playing for a manager who can do something so evil as that to one of his players. And so I determined that at the end of the season I would do everything I could to leave, just to get away from such a nasty person. But before that came, we were all getting changed after a training session at St James Park. And the first team squad, which wasn't a big one, it was only about 14, 15 players, they were getting changed in the home dressing room, and all the other players, the younger players, the reserves, the youth, they all got changed in the away dressing room. And Gordon Lee has walked into our dressing room, and he stood right in the middle of the dressing room, and in a loud voice he's gone, "Well, is Aidan McCaffrey Irish?" Now, Aidan McCaffrey was a young centre-half in the reserve side who was getting changed in the other dressing room. I thought, well, it's a bit strange. Why has he come in here? But anyway, so So he said, why do you want to know if Abe McCaffrey's Irish? He said, and Gordon Lee said, I want to nominate him for the Irish international team. I said, he owns his own boots. I said, that'll get anybody into the Irish team. Gordon Lee said, how dare he not be Irish and have a name like McCaffrey? I said, oh, don't be so stupid, Gordon. I said, my name's Malcolm Ian MacDonald. You can't get a more Scottish name than that, and I play for England. He said, you should not play for England with a name like yours. Tommy Cassidy said, excuse me, boss, but how many times have you played for China?
Great stuff, and some great stories there from Malcolm's past. We've got about 25 minutes left, and I always dread this when Newcastle's doing as badly as we are with this owner at the moment. But we're going to open the questions to the floor and take questions. It could be about Malcolm's career, so you might be able to keep it going in the same vein. But I gather there will be some questions in the room tonight about what's going on at the club. So put your hand up. We'll try and come to everybody over the next 25 minutes. Yes, at the back.
I'm going to ask you that question. It's a legend in our house. 1974 for the cup final. Did your balls hang out your shorts on Wembley?
Malcolm, did your balls hang out your shorts on 1974 in the FA Cup final?
No, it might have felt as if they were, but no. No.
That's great. I mean, that's a great start. It kept the humour going anyway. Okay.
Malcolm, can I ask you a question? You know, 1974 when you were so dangerous, you kicked the ball at the stadium. What happened there? What did Joe Harvey say to you?
Sorry, but
When you kicked the ball out of the stadium or something, Malcolm?
Joe Harvey,
no, I didn't kick it out of the stadium. Good heavens, I'll tell you what, you need to be Superman to kick the ball out of Wembley.
But anyway.
I struck a shot over the bar, if that's what you're referring to, but Joe didn't say much at all. You know, it was disappointing, very, very disappointing.
Yeah.
But I think there was a dreadful error made before the game, and it was that Stuart Barraclough was left out, and we played a very narrow midfield. And Alec Lindsay, the Liverpool left back, was as slow as a cart horse. And he must have been absolutely pooing his pants thinking of playing against Stuart Barraclough, who was very, very quick indeed. And Stuart Barraclough was left out, and we played this narrow midfield. And Alec Lindsay, God dear, it was birthday, Christmas, and New Year all rolled into one. And he was just flying down the left wing with Steve Highway, and the two of them absolutely murdered us. But it was this change, and it was more a change created by Keith Birkinshaw than it was Joe Harvey, and it was a bad mistake. We had played with a right winger all season long, and all of a sudden we didn't have anybody wide at all. So it wasn't a good selection.
Thanks for that, Malcolm.
Okay.
What do you think of a club that gets 51,000 live on the telly and the only hope is to finish fourth?
What is your feelings about a club that still pulls in over 50,000 supporters, Malcolm, and our ambition is to finish fourth bottom?
The owner has no interest whatsoever in the club. Not now. He did have. What you have to remember is that when he bought Newcastle United, Sports Direct was a nationwide company. Using Newcastle United, their kit and what have you, he opened Sports Direct shops in all the major cities where, because Geordies had emigrated, looked for work over the decades, and still generations down the families that were abroad, they followed Newcastle United. They were Newcastle fans. They didn't forget their Geordie roots. And so he was opening all of these shops in the major cities, and he did it all around the world and plastered it with black and white stripes, but still with colours of other clubs. But it was focused on Newcastle United, and it worked for him. He finished, when he first bought Newcastle, his worth was £750 million, £750 million. His worth now is £4.5 billion. That's the difference that Newcastle United made for him. Now, it can't do any more because Sports Direct is all over the world. It's global. And so, he just wants rid. And he's not going to spend money, that's for sure, because he won't get it back. He is not going to invest in the transfer market. So they spent a few million on Willock, but he's just transfer listing about 5 or 6 other players in the hope that he's going to get that 25 million back. Sean Longstaff, Kieran Clark, Jeff, what's his name?
Hendrick,
yeah.
good luck with that.
Yeah, and good luck to getting any money for him. Dear me, they'll have to pay him to go. Yeah, so it's all purely business with him. He's very shrewd. Yes, it's about money, and he is not going to spend. And he purposely brought in a manager who wasn't going to ask, who wasn't going to demand. And Steve Bruce, he just lives with it. Steve Bruce's contract, he's probably the lowest paid in the Premiership, but he has a whacking big payoff if he's sacked. And that's what he looks for.
Yep, good stuff. Okay, Kenny, you had your hand up.
Did you have another profession before football?
Did you have another profession before football?
No, not really. No. I was when I was at school. I was offered the opportunity to play for Barnet, who were in the higher echelons of non-league. But my headmaster wouldn't allow me to. But he had to give permission, and he wouldn't give it. And so I knew that I could get into the professional game. And so no, I didn't have another profession. I was just I did work, but it wasn't sort of on a serious basis where I was going to create a career. My career was going to be in football, and that's what I went for.
What was your thoughts?
Okay, we'll come to you next, mate. We've got this hand up
What
here.
was your thoughts on the John Holmes era? What
was your thoughts on the entertainers?
What he did was absolutely terrific. Sir John, he found the wherewithal, apart from finance, to actually build a fantastic stadium, absolutely fantastic. But at the same time, there was a fantastic team put together by Kevin Keegan, and so it was entertaining to watch. It was a delight, and hence the nickname of entertainers that you just mentioned, Steve. And they were. It was such a joy to watch them out on the pitch.
You've got a videotape of that, haven't you?
And the person who ultimately let Sir John down was Freddie Shepherd. Freddie, let's say, let's put it this way. He created a very large black hole in the accounts of Newcastle United. And hence, Sir John realised he had to sell the club. And that's where Mike Ashley came in.
I guess nothing's really changed, though, has it? Everybody makes money out of football. And I think just the fact that Newcastle is always in the public eye, the press love to cover Newcastle stories, they love to put the stories out there. I think ultimately, you know, they all take, it's just ours is more publicised, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
Mike Ashley's no different.
Yeah. Mike Ashley isn't any different. Well, actually, he's probably one of the most selfish men that I've ever known. And he's totally monosyllabic with it. And all he is interested in is enlarging what he's got, and the club don't come into it. It can't help him anymore.
He didn't lie when he came to the club. His first words in the official interview that he gave were, "I've come to buy Newcastle United to promote my sports brand globally," which is what you said right at the start.
Yeah. Yes.
Exactly. Okay, next question.
Sorry.
Hey, Markham, over there.
Yes.
Markham, the Cockney lad, Fulham, Luton.
Sorry, did you call me a Cockney? Wrong side of London. Hey, I'll call you a Mackham then, shall I?
No, they go back to Arsenal for 3-3-3-3-3, whatever it was. What made you come back up here then?
Well, I've been over in Italy.
Can I just say something?
Go on.
You keep calling us Newcastle. It's actually Castle. Newcastle.
You can't say castle, can you?
Anyway, by the way,
What made you come back up to Newcastle?
I was Century FM got in contact with me and asked if I would come up and do a radio program for them, which I did. And then they were bought out by Global, and it was the lad, the managing director, who put in there by not Global, by Capital, and he was absolutely terrific. And he said, right, I've got a terrific idea. He said, but I want 3 presenters because Century FM, it wasn't local, it was regional. And so it covered a huge area. It went from the Scottish border all the way down to Nottingham. And so he looked at the map, and there was Newcastle, Sunderland and Middlesbrough as the main clubs in the area. And he said, I want to create a programme around those 3 main clubs. And so he got in Eric Gates, he got in Bernie Slavin, he got in myself. And so let me tell you of the first day that we were there before going into the studio at 6 o'clock. And Eric Gates and I, we did a whole load of research on the internet, and we got all sorts of information and what have you that might just crop up or that we might just need. And so we've got all of these papers with all this information on. Me, him, and Bernie had done his homework as well. And we were waiting outside the studio for the previous programme to finish before going in. And because you change over in the ad break. And he's come downstairs and he's come across to us and he's gone, what are all the papers? And we said, well, it's all information that we might need. So he just grabbed it, ripped all of them to shreds. Mine, Gates's, Bernie's, all in tatters on the floor. And he just turned to us and he said, ad lib. And he walked away. And that's what we did. We just ad libbed. And what we were doing was we were taking the piss in a light-hearted way, but I would take the piss out of Sunderland and Middlesbrough. Bernie Slavin would take the piss out of Sunderland and Newcastle. Eric Gates would take it out of Middlesbrough and Newcastle. And for about 6 or 8 weeks, people didn't quite realise what we were doing. And then it clicked. And then the fans started seriously calling us, and they took part in the piss take. And it became a really funny programme. Very funny. And people called it a football programme. It wasn't. It was a comedy programme.
London, back up to the northeast.
The programme?
Mm-hmm.
The programme?
I've worked on that for 15 years.
Oh yeah, so the actual programme got you up here.
Oh, yeah. And I worked on it for 15 years.
Went on the TV, didn't it? Because Tyne Tees took it on regionally.
Oh, yes.
We used to go and do road shows around the pubs. I used to
go
come
out
and do them.
Friday nights. We used to, for Tyne Tees, and it used to go out late at night. We used to go all over the
clubs,
place.
football clubs. Roger Thames used to host it.
That's right. Yeah, we did one from a castle. Yeah, sorry.
That's a castle for you, mate. Right, I'm going to come to you next because you had your hand up, and then I'll come to you. Okay, you first, sir.
Yeah, Malcolm, thank you for tonight. Thoroughly enjoyed listening to you.
That's very kind.
I wanted to ask you 2 questions, really. In terms of being a striker, were there any defenders that you came up against that you knew you were going to score?
Any defenders that you knew you were going to score against, Mal?
And
Yes.
secondly, before you answer that, the opposite. Was there a defender
Okay.
that you thought
I know.
he's got
Right.
my number?
Best defender, worst defender that you played against?
Coventry. I always scored against Coventry, always, and it was Jeff Blockley who I used to play with in the under 23s, and he was very tall and rather slow, and so I used to take. And there was a fantastic photograph which I have at home, taken by a photographer friend of mine. Back then, Coventry were one of the very few sides to have a scoreboard, a big scoreboard, and it gave you all the sort of match facts and what have you, and it actually read Coventry 0, Newcastle 3. And underneath was 999. Coventry needed to dial it, I tell you. It's a wonderful photograph. Coventry, honestly, I used to score against them all the time. The hardest, and in all honesty, I found it the most interesting. It was against Derby County, and it was Roy McFarlane and Colin Todd. And they, as a pair, were the best centre-half pair in the country, and possibly Europe. They were absolutely fantastic. And so it was that strength challenge that Roy McFarlane, and also the aerial challenge. And he was hard as nails. Roy McFarlane was probably the hardest that I've ever played against. There were all sorts of people like Tommy Smith who wanted a hard man image, but Roy McFarlane was the hard man. And Colin Todd was probably the quickest defender in the country. So it was a great race between he and I all the while. So yeah, it was a great challenge against those two. In all honesty, though, I'd rather play against Jeff Blockley.
Okay, mate, you had a question?
All the players you played against, who's injured yet and who's been the toughest?
Sorry, who's been the
been the toughest and who's
the toughest in what way?
Hard man.
Well, Roy McFarlane. Roy McFarland. He was the hardest. Yeah. And there was a.
Never play against Big Brother.
Oh yeah. Pussycat. Pussycat. Yeah. He used to get angry, and he used to chuck threats out and do all sorts. But yeah, no, he's a pussycat.
You got a question, Al?
Well, if you were the manager of Newcastle United now, who would you have as the captain?
If you were the manager of Newcastle now, who would you have as the captain?
I would probably make, from the players that are there, I would make Kieran Clark the captain. And the reason for that is I think he's one of the more intelligent people there. I think he seeks to play the game for the best of the club, not for the best of himself. And there were too many players in there who play for themselves, not the club.
I would give it to Matt Ritchie, of course.
Oh, Matt Ritchie. Yes. Yeah,
He's a leader. He's a shouter. Every game you hear him.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, he's.
But the problem with that is that bless him, he's on one side of the pitch, and so I always think a captain needs to be somewhat central. He's got a better got better communication to both sides.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a good shout, and Richie, I think, is an absolutely fabulous personality and character within the club. I think he will give absolutely everything, and there's a lot of them who don't.
Yeah. Yes, mate.
It's one of your playing days. You get about Jack Charlton. He always said he had a little black book. I think in the next game. Did you have one of them?
No, but I was in his book.
I didn't know that.
The first time I played against Jack Charlton, bless him, and would you believe it that in the couple of years before he died, I would meet up with him and his wife on a Friday lunchtime, and we'd have lunch in his son's pub in Camas, called Charlton's. The first time I ever played against Jack Charlton, Leeds had a corner going on in the Newcastle penalty area, and I'm on the halfway line with Jack Charlton. And I always used to sort of just keep moving around, making their heads turn and what have you. And I walked behind him, and I've gone, bloody hell, Jack. And he said, what? I said, looks like you've got a road map in the back of your legs. Varicose veins he had. He said, you cheeky bastard. He said like that. And he started chasing me. And I'm running round the centre circle, and Jack's chasing me. He said, I'm going to get you right out over the standings. And he was never going to catch me, but he hated anybody who just took a little bit of a Michael out of him. Wouldn't have it at all.
Okay.
Oh, can I tell you? Can I tell you another Jack Charlton story?
Go for it.
So he's manager of the Republic of Ireland, and because all the players of his team played in England, they were instructed when they were playing an international abroad to meet at Heathrow, and that Jack had it sorted where there was an executive room that they could all meet in before getting onto the flight, and so they come in through the door, and Morris Setters had sort of mark them off and what have you to say that they're there. And this young lad has walked in through the door, and Jack was there, and he's gone, "What the hell do you think you're doing?" And he's just got hold of him, and he's opened the door, and he's chucked him out. He says, and "Don't you come trespassing in our room." And he shut the door. And Morris said, "Jack, you've just chucked out our new young player." He was going to get his first cap tomorrow.
Last question, folks. Who's going to have it? Anyone? Anyone got a burning question? Yes, mate.
When the management was Fulham, your boy was Plough, you did really, really well. Why did you? Don't be funny, but yeah, I thought you would have won and taken better. What happened in the management?
Why didn't you continue management after the Fulham job?
It's a strange old game in that. My chairman was a very difficult man, and he put things about myself or the financial director. He made life very difficult indeed, and so it suited him to do what he was doing. He was if you like, he was a poor man's Mike Ashley, I tell you.
I think though, when I watched you play in Manchester, you had a very attacking style.
Yeah.
I'm surprised no one else came in and took you further because you were very entertaining to watch. Is it Ray Houghton?
Oh yes, Ray Houghton, yeah.
Gordon Davies?
Yeah, Gordon Davies. We came up to Newcastle and we won 4-1. And Gordon Davies actually he scored the second goal, which finished up winning the match of the day, goal of the season.
It did, yeah.
Yeah, it was a good side.
What did it feel like to come back as a manager to St James's Park, where you'd scored so many goals, you were a hero, you were loved, and obviously then turning over the team 4-1? It must have been a mixed emotions day. You want to win, but at the same time.
Yeah. What I must say is that when I came out of the tunnel just prior to that match, I got as big a cheer in the crowd as I did when I was a player here, and I've never forgotten that. That was special. That just because you're the opposition, all of a sudden that love is not turned to hate up here. It is at most other clubs, at most other towns and cities and what have you. But up here, you're very big-hearted, broad-minded, and you always remember and appreciate. And that I think is absolutely terrific. And you're what I think of as true football supporters, that you're there purely and simply for the game, for no other reason. For the game, to support your team. And that's how it should be.
And you ask why Malcolm McDonald moved up here? Because of you. That's a great place to finish it. Keep the applause going. Put your hands together for Supermac, Malcolm McDonald.
Thanks, Steve.